There we
There we go.
go. Okay.
Hi, live folks who are totally out there listening to us right now. We know it.
There's so many of them. There's like millions of people live listening
Wow,
to
we've
us
got
right
millions of
now,
people. You didn't tune in last week for the 400th episode, but we're so glad you're here with us today for 401.
especially because it's 600.
That's what I was saying. That's definitely what, see, it's 400 million people tuning in, and that's what got me confused. Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All
Let's
right.
do this.
It is April 5th, 2018. I'm Micah Sargent, and right now we are going to talk about Facebook holding up to its promises, new changes in Final Cut Pro, Apple hiring a pretty big name from Google, and probably some more because this is the iMore Show. Joining me this week is the one true cornerstone of the iMore Show anew. It's Lori Gill. Hello, Lori.
Hello, Micah. And joining me today is the indomitable Micah Sargent. How are you doing today, Micah?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm excited. I think we always have a lot of fun whenever we can just chat
When it's
back and
just the
forth.
two of us and we can
It's
just,
just the
Renee and
two
Serenity
of
can
us.
shut up so we can do all the talking.
Exactly. They remain quiet and we march along.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we should certainly get into things today. I am sort of excited to talk about a new change in Final Cut Pro because this just hit the airwaves. We literally helped Renee get this up and rolling, like making sure that it was ready to go on
Minutes
time.
ago, mere minutes ago.
It is breaking news. Final Cut Pro 10.4.1 is here. And we got two big features. We got something called ProRes RAW and my favorite, which is closed captioning. So let's talk a little bit about ProRes RAW first of all. So when you take photos with a DSLR, you can do it with iPhone, but it's sort of not a what am I trying to say? It's not a feature that is just an automatic thing. But whenever you take photos with a DSLR, most of the time you're going to want to take those photos in RAW, which means that the image has a lot of data packed into it, but the camera doesn't try to do a lot of compensation. Okay. So it's going to make a photo that's got as much information as possible. So it's sort of going to sit at the baseline. So you'll notice that the photo might look a little washed out. It doesn't necessarily have super deep shadows and things like that. And that's because if you capture high, then everything sort of below the middle line might not all be there. And if you capture low, then everything above the middle line might not be there. So it shoots the photo sort of in the middle, and that gets as much high and as much low as possible if you can sort of.
So is it kind of as close to what it naturally looks like? Is that like the point of RAW?
Well, yes and no. It's not necessarily what it's not what our eyes see
Okay.
necessarily, because again, our eyes perceive things differently depending on who you are and how your eyes are set up.
Sure.
But I think the best way to put it is it gives us the ability to make a photo that looks like what our eyes would see, because there's just more data there. There's more information, and we can go in there and make adjustments to it.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. We should have Chella on for this.
Yeah, yes. She could talk even more about RAW, but this feature now gives the ability for editing and working with footage that is ProRes and RAW. So you're going to get this very these huge chunky files, so to speak, because they are packed with data that you can then use Final Cut to change the color ratings. You can change or color gradings, not color ratings, color gradings. You can change all of this stuff, and you're going to get high fidelity imagery. There's going to be sort of less compression to the image, and so there's going to be a lot more detail. Instead of shooting with a camera and getting footage that already has things tuned so that they look good, so to speak, in this whatever the camera manufacturer thinks is good. This is giving you the option to make those adjustments, apply those filters, and get the footage that you want.
I think
So
I can liken this to the music, to recording music. You're making this work for me. I've never really understood raw, so I'm having a great conversation with you. So, if I were talking about recording music, raw video and photography would be similar to the unmastered tracks of your song that you recorded, so that you, as the engineer or the person who's making that music sound good, you have access to each individual track and can adjust them so that they're exactly the way you want the final product to sound. And then that gets compressed, it gets mastered. And then when it's mastered, there's no longer access to those individual tracks from that. So I'm guessing raw is actually a lot like that. So it's like raw video and photo would be 24 tracks or 36 tracks or whatever of this video that you get to manipulate each individual image. Does that sound right?
yes, that's a perfect metaphor.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
perfect.
a fantastic metaphor.
Great.
Yeah, your 24 or 36 tracks in this case are the different values and levels of color and grain and things like that. That yes, you get to edit and make into exactly what you want. So it's basically, instead of getting a final version, instead of getting I don't know, Taylor Swift's latest track in its final format as an MP3, which loses some of the original quality. Yeah, you get to go all the way back to the originals and can remaster it however you want to. Yeah, I like that
Yeah.
that metaphor.
Thank you.
Mhm. So yeah, that's pretty exciting. Apple's also working with Atmos. So I like, those are things that don't mean a lot to me, but it means that you know, if you know sort of what all of these other pro tools are, then you're going to have access to that. But you can get real time raw footage from your camera's sensor using these different tools. And so I think this is just another way that Final Cut's sort of trying to be as pro as possible, to give the pros sort of what tools they need to edit.
Yeah,
And
this
I
sounds
like that.
great. If I were somebody who worked in video, I think I would be pretty disappointed that I couldn't have my original 24 tracks to manipulate. So I think having access to the raw video is probably really great for video makers out there. I'm sure Serenity is using it right now with her soon to come iPad Pro review.
Yes, yes.
Or
So
sorry, 9.7-inch
iPad.
iPad review, not
Yes.
iPad.
There's no pro on the end of that
No
one,
Pro.
but there is a pro on the end of Final Cut, and that's what makes this one awesome. So the go ahead.
I was just going to ask about the other feature.
Oh,
Go for it.
yeah. The other feature I'm super excited about. It's closed captioning. Closed captioning is coming to Final Cut. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this as a whole. Right now, people typically, I mean, there are different tools out there for doing closed captioning. People sometimes will download a tool and they can make those edits in a separate sort of app, and so they plug in their video and they might type out their captions and put those into the file. One of the ways that I have handled closed captioning for videos is uploading it to YouTube. YouTube has a feature that lets you. I wouldn't use YouTube's automatic closed captioning. It's pretty terrible. It's doesn't do a very good job. But what you can do is actually transcribe the video yourself, and you plug that stuff into YouTube, and it reads what you've transcribed and then listens to the video and then links those times up. That is a fantastic tool to use. So that's all sort of in the back end. But once you've done that, you can actually download the subtitle file and be able to use that across all your other applications.
Oh,
So up to this point, it's required some pretty involved steps in order to get closed captioning, but it's not only is it good in terms of accessibility, it gets more people able to see your footage and you know, be able to share in the joy of your videos, but also there are, if you're not thinking of things in those terms, you should think of things in terms of reach, which is the case that uh, social media services and other places where you publish your video, they treat videos that have closed captioning in them a little bit better. So you're going to get better reach. You're going to get it out to more people, especially with Facebook. Facebook, if you have a closed captioning tied, then if they have a choice sort of between one that's got closed captioning and one that doesn't, they're going to push the one that's got closed captioning. So it's a good thing all around. Like, you should feel motivated to add this feature. Now, go ahead.
You might be about to answer my question, but I was going to ask with closed captioning and Final Cut Pro, does that mean that you can basically add your closed captioning in your video right there through Final Cut Pro and then upload it to YouTube or Facebook and the closed captioning is there?
Yes, this is the fantastic thing. So in Final Cut Pro 10, you can create closed captions from scratch, like in Final Cut Pro. You don't have to go to some other app. It's built into the workflow now. Or you can import them if you have a file, if you have like an SRT file already set up. And so maybe you did the thing and you find out that something you incorrectly transcribed it. You could pop that into Final Cut really quick, import it, fix it, excuse me, and then export the file. So yeah, being able to edit them right in Final Cut Pro and have them stay connected to individual clips, it sort of goes back to what you were talking about before with the 31 tracks. Like, this doesn't just have to take that final file and be able to do the transcribing there. No, you can keep it connected to the individual clips and make those edits. What I like too is that Renee says that it's going to warn you if you have overlaps on your captions, if there are bad characters. Now, what that means is different. There's a standard for closed captioning out there, and there are some characters, like, you can't have emoji in your captioning. It's not going to work because
Yeah.
they've got to support a wide range of services on television and in broadcast. Oftentimes, individual televisions will have their own sort of closed captioning system, and that means that you've got to have the right thing, or else it's going to show up in weird symbology and it's going to throw off the whole closed
Like
captioning system.
instead of an apostrophe, it's an ampersand or something, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. Instead of an apostrophe, it's an ampersand and a hyphen and seven numbers or something like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you won't get, bad characters, and then also bad formatting. This is a huge deal that Final Cut took this extra step. A lot of these programs, unless you go for the really expensive, really professional sort of broadcast tools, a lot of these programs sort of throw up that shruggy emoji and just, like, I don't know, just put in whatever you want. They are taking the time to make sure that it's matching the standards that are out there, and I think that's very important. And
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
there's a little bit of trivia that I want to touch on, just because it's something that I learned and I thought that it was interesting. And I learned this when I was working at my last gig, where we did video every single day. And once we started, being broadcast televisions, we had to add captioning because it's the law. So captions and subtitles, those terms get interchanged a lot, but they are two different things. Closed captioning is taking what someone is saying in the video, in the footage, and transcribing it, adding it as text below so that you can read what the person is saying. Subtitles are taking what the person is saying in one language and translating it and transcribing it and adding it to the bottom of the screen, so that you, despite the language differences, can understand what they're saying. So captions are same language, subtitles are translation from a language. And now you can use captions as subtitles. So if you wanted to add subtitles to your film, then you can do that. But the problem is, different file, it's sort of, it's all goes back to what I was talking about before, where different televisions and different set-top boxes and different things handle these differently. And so subtitles are often stored in one little settings area and captions are stored in another one. So that's just something to keep in mind as you are using these tools. But this is a big deal for YouTubers, for people who upload video to Facebook, for people who upload video across social media. Huge
Yeah,
deal.
that sounds really great. So if you were making a documentary, let's say using Final Cut Pro, and you use closed captioning so that you're meeting your accessibility needs, but you also at some point in the documentary were speaking to somebody that was speaking in a language that wasn't native to the original documentary language, you would want the separate file that is the subtitles file, because when somebody goes to watch this documentary, they don't want the subtitles to cut into closed captioning, or they don't want the subtitles to be on screen as if closed captioning, right? That's how those files would be separated, I'm guessing.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't want you don't because in actuality, the closed captioning would have the words in their original language. If you've got someone speaking in Spanish, then you would put it in Spanish. And so the subtitle would be the one where you could see it in English.
Right.
And the apps, they're not apps, but the services handle this thing where they can switch between, okay, we got closed captioning. We know this person prefers their content in English. So when that scene comes up, we don't show the closed caption, we show the subtitle.
Oh,
So
okay.
in
I
a
was thinking they would just both show up, like you would
oh, and they'd
have,
be layered over the top or
yeah,
something.
like one on top of the other, and that would kind of cut into the screen. But no, yeah, that's great. It'll just, there are programs that kind of like
Yeah, if you go to
take care of.
Netflix and turn on closed captioning and it knows that you want to watch the video in English, you'll see where it will switch between the captions in one section and then go to subtitles in another, which is, it's really cool how powerful those tools are, and I'm glad they're there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really am excited about this, and I can't wait to try it myself, because it just means that I don't have extra steps that I have to worry about. I can do it all right there in Final Cut, and that's a big deal. The less where you have to jump around.
Jump around. Jump up, jump up, and get down.
Is really nice. And lastly, on that point, there are some services, Twitter, who don't offer the ability to upload your captions separate from your main video. And so if they're not embedded directly in the video file, then captions won't be shown. So that's not accessible. That's not good. You want to be able to show those. And so this gives you that ability, as opposed to having to export a separate file and upload that. You can do it all in one file. And
so this kind of evens the playing ground for all media sources that offer video. So Instagram and Twitter and Vimeo and anything. Final Cut Pro is making it possible to always have closed captioning, not just whether or not the service provides it. You get to provide it.
Well, that's not entirely true. The system still has to have support for showing those closed captions. It doesn't just embed it and like lock it in, because some people don't want to watch it with captions. And so what it does is you've got like your regular .mov file or whatever, but there's this little tiny file that sort of hangs on to that, but it's all built into the one file. So you upload that, and any service that has it built in where you can flip the switch to turn on closed captions, it'll be able to do that. The way that YouTube works is you upload the video as one file without you can embed it, but let's just say, how it works right now. I upload a YouTube video, and then separately I go in and I upload this file. It's an SRT file. And then YouTube takes those and puts them together in the presentation in the video box, where you can then choose, yes, I want to turn on those closed captions. So this just lets you do it all in one file. And so sites that don't let you upload it separately, you can. I do need to make a correction, because this literally just changed. I was on Twitter literally yesterday. There's a page called studio.twitter.com, and it's just a place where you can upload media and tweet it out. They have just recently added captioning support as a separate file. So apologies to Twitter. You did just add that not too terribly long ago, and I just saw that change. So good on you. But any service, yeah, thumbs up. But any service that doesn't have that feature built in, and also if you just don't want to have to worry about the extra upload, then you can do that all in one. And it is the standard when it comes to uploading for broadcast and things like that. That caption file has to be built into the video file. It's not a separate thing. So
Excellent.
there you
Way to
go.
go, Apple and Final Cut Pro. That sounds really great. If only I knew the program better. I feel listening to you talk, I feel like I need to actually
Right?
dig in
I'm
and
super
just go
excited
for it.
about it. You should. You should.
I should.
It's not terribly difficult. It's once you really understand it, it's a lot of fun. And like I said, I'm pumped. I can't wait to just try it just because I want to see how they've handled it. So good on you, Final Cut. It's a free update for anyone who's already a Final Cut Pro user. So be sure to check it out. And one last note, I know I keep saying one last note on that, but one other last note on that is that Compressor also is going to get an update that supports closed captioning. So if you're going through afterward and sort of exporting your video or rolling your video into different file formats for different devices, you can adjust closed captioning in there as well.
Nice. That's awesome.
Now, before we move on to talk about all the rest of the stuff that's on the page, we should talk about Thrifter, as Renee always calls it. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm vamping while I try to pull up the
I think that
Thrifter copy.
we should get Mark Hamill to do a soundbite for us, just of him saying "Thrifter."
Yeah, aren't you and him pretty good friends?
We're buds, you know. I follow him on the Instagrams. We're like best friends.
Yeah, I thought so. So yeah, if you want to get in touch with him and see if he'll record that for us.
Yeah, no problem.
If you haven't heard about Thrifter, well, you're gonna hear about them today, because Thrifter, it's a way to save money on everything from gadgets to home goods by shopping based on value and not hype. That means that you're gonna get real deals, not those fake deals that are just trying to get you to spend your money. If you sign up at thrifter.com, you're gonna get thoughtfully selected tech deals from places like Amazon and Best Buy, home goods deals from places like Target, etc., all daily. It's all the stuff and none of the fluff. And Lori, what Thrifter deal has you interested this week?
Okay, so I'm always all about gaming stuff. When I choose things for Thrifter, it's almost always related to games.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
And this time, Nintendo recently updated their Nintendo 2DS to the XL. So it's new, even though it's a 2DS, it's actually a newer version. It's not that big, flat, singular screen when it actually has a closable clamshell, which when I originally decided to buy my new DS, I went with the 3DS over the 2DS. I don't use the 3DS features, but I preferred the clamshell close. So if only this were out when I was deciding which one I should buy, because now you can get the Nintendo 2DS XL for only $130. It's on sale, $20 off. That's a pretty good deal if you haven't got your 2DS yet. And 3DS games and 2DS games are cross-compatible. You just don't get the 3DS features on the 2DS. So it's a really great bargain. And most people don't use the 3DS feature anyway. It's a little weird and hard to kind of make sure that you got your eyes lined up right.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I get a little nauseous when I look at the 3DS screen. So
yeah, the times I've tried it, I've felt the same way. It's like,
so now you can have a 2DS.
There you go, 2DS XL. The one that I'm going to talk about is Philips has a headlight restoration kit. It has just been winter. Winter often comes with salt and all sorts of gross stuff getting all over the lenses of your headlights. This lets you sort of clean the cloud off of the front of your headlights, so it brings them back to that bright state. I have an older vehicle that I don't have to drive very much, so I just drive around until it dies eventually someday. Rest in peace. But until then, a tool like this helps me make sure that those older lenses stay nice and clear, so that I can cut through the fog and other things at night whenever the sun isn't out. So a headlight restoration kit helps you sort of clean away the winter grime and turn those lenses back to clear over the top of your headlights. It's $20 usually. It's down to $13, and I think that's a pretty great deal for something like that. I always like to point out the deals that aren't tech, because like I said, Thrifter, is looking for the best deals, period. It's not just tech deals, but you can sign up at thrifter.com. You're going to get those thoughtfully selected deals. It's all the stuff, none of the fluff. Thanks so much to Thrifter for sponsoring this week's episode of the iMore Show. Lori, Facebook
Yes.
is making good on its promises. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah. So let's see what we can do now. One big thing that just happened yesterday, Facebook updated their app to make it possible for you to delete multiple third-party, remove access to Facebook from multiple third-party apps at once. Before, you used to have to go in, you'd view your Facebook connections, all the apps that you have connected to Facebook, which, by the way, I did do that recently, and I had a lot connected to them. So, I mean, some of them, like, I don't even use the program anymore at all. Like, so yeah, I had to go in and remove some of them. That's the issue with working in the tech industry, is that you're testing apps out, and it's just so easy to go, yeah, go ahead and use Facebook, and then you don't even think about it. And years later, you don't remember that you even did that. So you would have to go in and remove access individually for each and every one, go back and do it again, and go back and do it again. And if you have a lot of them, it really does take time. Worth it, but it does take time. So one feature now that's available in the iOS app, and probably the Android app, I mean, I'm assuming they would definitely do it for both. You can just sort of check, you hit like an edit button, and then just check, and then remove. And then that removes access to your Facebook data to multiple third-party apps all at once. And that's a great addition that I'm really glad Facebook added, because I think it can be daunting for some people when they think, okay, well, I'm going to go, clear out my Facebook and kind of do a little closet cleaning. And then you see this long list, and then you realize that it takes forever to do each one. And, maybe you were out at dinner, or maybe you're about to go out to dinner and you don't have a bunch of time. So you get 2 or 3 done and you think, I'll finish it later. And then you never finish it later.
And it just
So
sits there.
Yeah. So this is a really great way to quickly clear out third-party apps that you don't use anymore, that you don't want to give access to anymore. I think that access to your Facebook for certain third-party apps is great. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have any connection between the two, because there's
I am, darn it. No.
Everybody's different, but I like, from my perspective, I still have about a dozen that I have connected to Facebook, because they're companies that I trust, and the access to my information that they want is limited. So I feel comfortable keeping them connected to it. But there's also, for me, what I did was, there were dozens that I never use anymore. Some of the companies might not even exist anymore because of what I do with testing apps. So I just went through and got rid of everything that I know I don't need to be or don't want to have connected to Facebook. But there's other, I want my Twitter and my Instagram connected to Facebook because, well, for one thing, Instagram is Facebook, right? But also, if I want to post a picture on Instagram, I want it to go to Facebook too. So I'm not going to disconnect that, because I approve of the convenience. So that little things like that. So that's what I mean by some services. I think it's okay to keep them connected.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I agree. I think that it's nice to not have to go through, because one of the problems I think on iOS is not which is frankly most of the time where I'm creating new accounts, because it's usually tied to apps. Not every single one of those apps does the necessary steps to invoke iOS's built-in password manager. And what ends up happening is I'll go through the process to create an account, and then I realize, well, crap, I got to jump out of this app. I got to go into 1Password. I got to hit the plus sign to create a new login. Got to type in my email, then got to generate a password. Then it asks me for a website address, and I'm like, I don't know, because this is an app. So I guess I'll just guess at that. I'll type that in, hit save, hop back into the app, paste the password, realize, oh, I haven't even put my email in yet, go back and put in my email, and then finally I can create the account and go through the steps. That's a lot of extra stuff that I don't want to have to do. And if there's an option to use Facebook or Twitter, I don't ever take it, but it is nice that it's there because there is some convenience involved with that.
Yeah, especially when you're doing what we do. I download a new app almost every day to test it
Yeah.
out. So it is I don't always, especially if it's a service that I think I'm probably going to use a lot. I actually tend to use the Facebook Connect for services that I kind of think, you know what, I'm just going to check this out. I'm probably not going to use it again after a week or something like that. But if it's a service that I like and I know I'm probably going to want to keep, I will use my personal sign up, through email or something. But there are some apps that the only way to connect to their service is through the Facebook sign in. So there's that. Yeah.
Okay.
So in addition to that specific feature that Facebook has updated, they also sent out a press release yesterday talking about the different things that they're going to do going forward to make changes to the API so that developers of other apps no longer get access to deeper amounts of information. For example, the events API. I think this is a really good one. So I have Facebook connected to, I think I have it connected to my Calendars 5. So when I'm invited to an event, it will show me the invitation, all of the details about the invitation, and everybody else that's been invited. And then I can click on that person's profile and I can look them up and find out more information about them. I've always thought that was a little weird. I get invited to like shows, like local gigs, and there's like 400 people that I don't know and all of their names are all listed in that event. And if I felt like it, I could go through and click on each and every one of them and find out who's coming to that show. So it's an unnecessary addition. There's no reason why I need to see who else has been invited to this event. If it's a more private and personal thing, then I can go look on the Facebook invite and see who my friends are, but it's not just listed in calendars or in Fantastical or something like that. It's listed in the original Facebook event page, but it's not added to third-party calendar apps. I think it's a nice thing for them to remove because it's unnecessary. It also clutters up my calendar. So
yeah, I don't want like that. It feels like they're all having a party in my calendar entry, and I don't need that or want that. Like,
exactly.
get out of there, please. And with some calendars, like you get notifications when people decline or accept, and I wonder how that all ties in. Can you imagine? Like, I would never be able to open my app if I, had that set up.
Yeah, there'd just be too much going on. So they're going to remove that sort of third-party, third-person access. You can still, calendar events can still connect your Facebook to their calendars. You just don't see everybody else's information because that's where you're kind of getting into that territory of like, Joe Plumber didn't give permission to calendars to access his information. So why does calendars have his information? Well, it's because calendars have my information.
Yes.
So they're just taking that out. So they're kind of, and this is what they're doing across the board. They're just kind of like bringing it back in a little bit tighter and saying, we are going to let third-party apps interact with Facebook, but we're not going to let third-party apps interact with other people that didn't give permission to interact with third-party apps. So that's kind of what they're moving toward across the board. I think this is kind of a big deal because we've had a lot of, big, delete Facebook type protests come up. And for some reason, this one has really hit home for a lot of people in a way that it hasn't before. And Facebook is actively doing something to fix this mistake. Usually they just kind of like, oh, well, we did this for a reason and maybe we'll change it, but really we had our reasons for it. So, just deal with it. And in this case, they're kind of not fully saying, whoops, we messed up, as much as they're saying like, oh, we actually didn't realize just how much we were giving away. And now we're going to fix that. So that's kind of good.
Yeah. And I think, in the beginning, I don't want to give Facebook a pass, and I don't think they're giving themselves a pass on this either. But I do want to point out that in the beginning, I think as a collective human race, we were all a little naive about what what services like this were capable of doing, like social media in general. When Facebook was born, I don't think Facebook necessarily knew what it was going to become. And so it created a very open tool to allow people to connect. And then they realize that companies take advantage of that. And I think that this is just one of those lesson learned type things. And it's unfortunate that it had to happen on such a big scale. But at the same time, like, I do think that that plays into it. And so in the beginning, it made sense to give these connections and let people be as connected as possible. And I'm sure that there are some people who liked the idea of having sort of easy access to, should I go to this event? If there are going to be 400 people there, then it's going to be packed. Like, how far away do I need to, like, there is information and help to be gained from knowing these things. But it's one of those things where I don't think most people need it. Most people don't want it. And it does give you that sort of creepy feeling. I think what I find most interesting, and it seems like Facebook is doing this across the board, is they say, and in the future, only apps we approve that agree to strict requirements will be allowed to use the Events API. I think that's going to be the case across the whole board. There will be certain apps that get access to this, but it's going to require strict requirements. There are going to be, check-ins and things like that. So Facebook is not necessarily removing this, any of these tools for every single thing, but they're only going to be working with certain people. And I think that lesson learned here, it's not going to be easy to, like, you really have to prove that you need access to this stuff in order to get it. So I like that they are course correcting, and also that the plans that I've got an article about what Mark Zuckerberg promised as the company moves forward. They're really sticking to it, because Twitter makes a lot of promises. I love Twitter way more than Facebook, like, just starting there. But Twitter makes a lot of promises, and it takes them a really long time to make those promises reality, if they ever end up becoming reality. So it's been sort of refreshing seeing Facebook get kicked in the tuchus many, many, many times, and have to respond to getting kicked in the tuchus and actually go through with making these changes. So good job all around, all of you who've done like the Delete Facebook campaign, who have called for, like, have gathered your pitchforks and called for the Frankenstein death of Facebook, whatever it takes, because I think that that's, and then also people who work at Facebook that have pushed this stuff through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, our voices, need to be heard. And if Facebook isn't listening, then we talk louder. And this is one of those situations where we talk loud enough that Facebook finally opened the window and said, what?
What are you saying to me? I want you, that before it was, get off my lawn, but not this time, darn it, because there are too many people on the lawn.
And, not to make Facebook sound like they're just so wonderful for making these changes, because, we do also know that they, a couple of years ago, were talking about how they were worried about how much information they were allowing third-party organizations to access, not because they thought it would negatively affect their users, but because they wanted the information for themselves. So,
they're not a holy company or anything like that. Ultimately, like, the only credit that I can give is that they are making good on the sort of changes they said they were going to make.
Yeah.
And like that, it's sort of a sad state of affairs if that's even something to celebrate. That companies don't usually make good on these promises, and then this one is, and I at least am like, yeah, you're doing it, and it's like, yeah, but you said you were going to, so you really should do it. But honestly, when it comes to tech companies, they don't always make good on their promises quickly or at all, and so this is a nice thing. So, like, that's the one pat on Facebook's back I can give, but then I'm going to punch them in the shoulder for losing my data in the first place.
All right. So I think the next thing that we want to talk about is a little bit of shifting of internal employment along the lines of what Apple's doing. Recently, there was a big hire.
Yes. Okay. Jim, I'm going to need you to cut this part out. I need to take a second to remember how his name is pronounced, because I forgot.
John Giandria.
John Giandria. Oh yeah, John.
No, it was Gindria. Gindria.
Gindria. John. Wait, but there's an extra A-N. John Janandria? Is that
Janandria.
it? Janandria, John Janandria. Awesome. Okay.
We're sorry,
Uh,
John.
sorry. Can you um, redo your little intro there to this topic, and then I will.
Yep, sure can.
Cool.
So there's been a little shakeup in the hiring over at Apple, and we just recently found out that there's been a big hire on the Apple scene.
Yeah. Apple hired John Janandria. He is Google's now former chief of search and artificial intelligence. He did the AI, just sort of was in charge of the AI push and improvements and continuations at Google, and Apple snapped him up. This is a big deal. He's going to be taking over Apple's machine learning and AI initiatives, and I find this fascinating for multiple reasons. One, because Google is known for its one of the things that it's known for is its AI and machine learning features in things like their Google Photos platform, and they've got that Clips camera that takes photos based on machine learning algorithms or whatever. All of these tools, they get a lot of credit for those, and they are pretty cool. So that's the first thing that I think is interesting about this is they have hired someone from a company that seems to never be knocked for not doing AI, whereas Apple regularly does because they have tended to choose privacy and security over maybe some advancements. Now, the second thing that's interesting about this is basically that they've hired someone from Google, and Tim Cook is not one to pass up on a chance to talk about how other companies, Google, make their customers their product as opposed to making their products their products. So this is a fascinating thing. And Tim, or Cook rather, we're not on first name basis.
Mr. Cook.
Mr. Cook, Mr. Timothy D. Cook, whenever he made this announcement to employees, I found it interesting that he was sort of very quick to say, look, our technology must be infused with the values we all hold dear, and John shares our commitment to privacy and our thoughtful approach as we make computers even smarter and more personal. So he's sort of like, let me just go ahead and quote this right now. He cares about privacy. He's not going to be changing Google's feels about that. So.
Yeah, when Renee, I was sitting having coffee with Renee, and he just showed me his phone and showed me the announcement, and my first thought was, Google, huh? I mean, we don't even know what his position is going to be. He might not work in AI, but it'd be silly.
We do.
Oh, we do.
He's Apple said on Tuesday that Mr. Janandria will run Apple's machine learning and AI strategy.
Yep. Okay. There we go.
He reports directly to Tim Cook.
Okay. Yeah. So, I think so. Siri has some troubles, right? We know that. We know that. Sometimes I ask Siri to turn off the lights, and it just says, I don't know how to do that for no reason. And then I ask it to turn off the lights, and it says, okay, and turns off the lights. So we desperately need a better Siri. We need a better AI. We don't need Siri to have deeper access to our personal information in the way that Google does. For example, Google, will use face identification, which is great. It works really well, but it uses that at the expense of holding onto and storing some of our personal data that, maybe we don't want to. So is this gonna? I don't know. I assume because Apple has been very strict about and very specific about saying, we don't want your personal data. We don't want to keep it. We don't want to use it. We don't need it. And we're not going to. And so here we are in a position where we have someone coming from a company that's known, exactly like you said, to make commodities of our data. Is this going to change?
Yeah. So this is a fascinating thing to me because how, up to this point, Apple has worked in a way that they try to do as much on device as possible. And whenever it does need to go to servers, they've got differential privacy in place. And third parties have third parties of pundits and things like that, people who sort of are Apple watchers, so to speak, have complained that those extra steps makes this technology not as powerful and suggest that the only way to make it really good is by taking different approaches like ones that Google does. I don't see Tim Cook and the rest of Apple sort of bowing to that belief. They haven't up to this point. And what I think we've got here, whenever you get truly talented people who know, who are experts in certain fields, they like challenges. They like being challenged and showing that they can do things that other people can't do. And I feel like, I don't have any insight on this, but this just feels like one of those situations where Apple was looking for the best possible person. And then I have to wonder, like, why would he leave Google? And yes, money is always involved. I'm sure it's a great offer, but also people who, once you make a certain amount of money, it's like, I can work anywhere. I could retire right now if I want to. And so you are looking for a reason to make a change. And I think that one of those changes is a challenge. And so if he can come in and lead the effort to keep differential privacy in place, to keep on-device AI and machine learning in place, which is what the Clips device does at Google, then we have someone who can come in and make these things possible for Apple while also maintaining privacy. And it's like, it's one of those, they said it couldn't be done. And if they pull it off, it's great. So this just feels like an all around sort of, it's a good thing for both parties here in terms, and then a good thing for us as consumers to get these things.
The cynic in me, however, imagines that Apple will start to do, they will start to do that thing where they store information and they don't use differential privacy, and they do all the things that we kind of poo-poo other companies for, but then they say, but we're not going to use we don't sell your data. We don't, because we're not a company that does that. But they have it. But they're saying that they're not going to sell it. And then we kind of get into that situation where we just have to trust them, which, we already have learned that we just can't trust anybody, even Apple. And I do trust them, but if they start collecting and storing my data in ways that they aren't now, they're going to go on my list of, okay,
you're on my list.
Yeah. So yeah, my cynical side is thinking that they're eventually going to go that route, but then they're just going to say things like, well, but we're not going to do anything with it. We're just holding on to it, but we won't do anything with it. So we'll see. Hopefully that doesn't happen.
It might make you feel a little bit better to know, because of the GDPR, that's the General Data Protection Regulation, Apple is putting in place some new options that will let you see all of your data that's stored, make corrections to those data if you want, like submit changes to those data, delete that data, which in many cases is something that not a lot of companies offer sort of full access and true sort of understanding of what your data is. And I think that's a pretty big deal. That it's good. I think that these two things are happening at the same time. We've got somebody that maybe we don't trust as much coming into a position of power, and then pretty soon we'll have access and be able to say, I don't want this here anymore. You've got this file that has my mom's face in data form that you're using to pop her up in photos whenever I type in her name. And I don't want John G to have that. So I'm just going to delete that from Apple servers, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. The transparency aspect of it is very helpful. We as the consumers have a little more control over it, even if things went that route, which they probably won't, but we're just speculating here. Even if they did go that route, we have the option to make those decisions, and the information that's being stored is easy for us to find, and we can make those decisions as consumers. So that is nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else there to talk about it. Ultimately, it wasn't a bunch of extra information. It was just, hey, John G's coming to Apple. He got pulled for, he was Google's chief of search and artificial intelligence. And sort of everyone was, I think that was the thing that made it the most interesting was the fact that Apple grabbed a pretty high up Google employee. I mean, search is where Google started. Search is still a big part of their platform. And so to get the chief of that, as well as this field that I think if you have an event and you don't mention artificial intelligence or machine learning at some point during that event, then company or people think you're, going to be left in the dust. And so what I'm saying is machine learning and artificial intelligence are big right now. They are bigger than VR and AR in terms of what people want to hear, what you're working on. And so to make this move and to pull this person who's in charge of it, I think is big for two reasons. Again, to pull from Google and then also to hire at Apple. So that sort of is why I think this stood out so much. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this improves our AI experiences, how this improves Siri. Are you going to bring Siri to the Mac, John G? Because if you are, then you'll become my new hero. So by that, I mean, are you going to bring smart home controls to the Mac with Siri? Because that still hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I think we've talked multiple times. A sort of across the board, across all devices, Siri integration that's similar across all devices would be really great. So maybe iOS 12. I have a feeling it wouldn't be that soon though if they just hired him. Maybe though, right? It's possible.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. Anything else we want to touch on? Why don't we do an app or a game?
Oh, you put me on the spot.
I know, I'm putting myself on the spot too.
Let's check real quick. What have I downloaded recently?
Jacob Jingleheimer.
Oh, some of them I haven't really given enough testing to be able to say whether or not I recommend them. So.
Yeah, let's see. Sorry, live viewers.
Yeah.
You're getting a little peek behind the scenes.
Of us not knowing what we're talking about.
Don't tell anybody about our big secret. Oh, I think I know what I'd like to mention.
Good.
So this is an app that Serenity Caldwell suggested in a fantastic article. It was about heart rate variability. And so it talked about what heart rate variability is, how that can be used to inform health concerns, and how heart rate variability is recorded on the Apple Watch, because it's a newer feature that's come to Apple Watch. The app, however, is called Welltory. It's Welltory. It's all one word, so it could be Weltery, but I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, it's Welltory. We'll have a link to it in the show notes. And this app is a standalone app for checking your heart rate variability. It uses the iPhone's camera and LED sensor, or not LED sensor, but LED to take your heart rate variability. And essentially, this is how HRV readings work. They look at when your heart pulses, and then they record like your heart pulsating, and then they record your heart pulsating again, and just keep recording every time your heart does that. And they look at the spaces between when your heart actually does its expansion and contraction. And the variability between those is what heart rate variability is. It's the changes between the beats of your heart over time. And the way that informs your health is you might, again, this Serenity's article goes into huge depth about this, but your system, your brain system, what am I trying to say? Your nervous system, golly, your nervous system is meant to be able to control these aspects of your heart so that if you are met with a snake in the grass, you can run away really quickly and your heart pumps oxygen to the necessary parts of your body. And when you're stressed, you typically your heart rate increases. Whenever you're just chill, then your heart rate should go back down. And so a higher variability means that your nervous system is correctly communicating with your heart in order to make those changes. And that's what you want. So this app looks at those different changes, looks at your HRV, and can give you a picture of your overall health. And what I love about it is how detailed it is. So the last time I did a measurement, it had all of this information for me. You basically, like I said, you put your finger on the thing. What it does is it lights up your finger, and it can sense the changes in the red value of your finger. So it's looking at your blood and how it changes. And it tells you a breakdown, like what your heart is doing at the time. Last time I did a check, it was not happy with me. It's like, you're not doing so great and you're having trouble focusing. Your stress response systems are negatively impacting your body. There is a health risk. You need to rest and recover. You have an energy deficit, and it looks like you're stressed out. And I was like, yeah, because you're telling me all these horrible things about my health right now. But it was a particularly stressful moment that I had just had whenever I did the reading. So I was like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. So it can tell you these things. And what I like about it is it gives you recommendations. It's like, if you want things to return to normal, then you need to make sure that today you're not going out for a huge run, that you're trying to remain as stress-free as possible, that today is a rest day so that the next day you can go out and have the energy that you need. So if you want some insight on your health, and sort of what I love about this is it's almost like a secret messaging system, a secret signal that gives you information on a picture of your overall health that humans don't necessarily like. I think we too often are paying attention to, am I feeling sluggish right now? Does my stomach hurt? Do I have a cold, as pictures of our health and our well-being? But then there's this sort of secret subsystem that maybe we didn't know. It's like a debug system, and we can pull up that program inside of us and be able to check that, see how our health is doing. So
Yeah.
Welltory or however the heck it's pronounced, I don't care. You should download this app, absolutely, and get a better picture of your health. And I believe it's free to download, but it does have in-app purchases if you want to subscribe and basically get more information over a longer period of time, which of course gives you a better picture of how you're doing.
So yeah, so the subscription actually will just collect data for longer periods of time.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it gives you access to more integrations as well with different services.
Well, that sounds wonderful. I'm definitely going to check it out. So in the time that you were talking about Welltory, I was thinking, so an app that it's not new. So this isn't going to be, some people are going to roll their eyes at me talking about something it's a couple of years old now. WeTransfer. This is a online service that allows you to transfer really big files without having any sort of account situation necessary. You create a link and you share a link. It's temporary. So eventually that file goes away. My bandmates and I will share a lot of information through WeTransfer. Someone will create a link to all of our recordings. So we recorded a new album. So that's 12 songs worth of music. And that's all unmixed, unmastered. So it's big files. So we'll share it through WeTransfer. I grab the file, I download it, it's on my computer. So there's an app that allows you to do the same thing with WeTransfer. But what's great about it is it has a app extension. So you can grab, say, your music memos files. So when we're practicing and we're recording our new songs, and we just want to share them with each other because, listen to this song and let's work on this part or that part. I can just grab that using the app extension and send it in a text message to them. They've got a link to it. They don't have to have WeTransfer to be able to download and listen to it. But if they do, it then goes into the WeTransfer app, which you can build a dashboard for yourself within the WeTransfer app that it's almost like social media for yourself. You can separate. So I can, for example, have a board of just music from my band's recordings, and then I can have another board that's video clips and pictures from vacation that I went on with my best friend or something like that. And you have your own little boards within the WeTransfer app to access that information without having to like download it directly onto your to the separate places in your phone. So WeTransfer, it's a great service in and of itself, just for the fact that you can send huge files to another person. It's temporary. It only lasts for a short period of time. Neither of you have to have an account in order to use it.
Oh, wow.
And then the WeTransfer app, yeah, it's great.
That's
and
the
then the
best part.
WeTransfer app that lets you access things right on your phone using the app extensions, so you can grab files, upload them to, or create a link for them and share them with other people directly through WeTransfer. So it's great.
That's that last part especially. I hate when I have to be like, yeah, I need you to download this app, create an account, do a backflip, and then pay me $25, and then you'll get access to this thing that I'm trying to send you.
Right. Like Dropbox is a perfect example. Almost everybody has Dropbox, but when you get a file sent to you through Dropbox, if you're not signed in, you have to sign in. If it's somebody who just doesn't have Dropbox, they can't get it. They have to go, get access to it somehow. This is great because I didn't have to create an account in order to start using WeTransfer. Just literally type in WeTransfer.com. Boom, there's a page that says upload a file.
Wow.
Yes, I'd like to upload a file. Share the link. Yes, I'd like to share the link. And then you send it to somebody else, and they don't have to sign up to get that file. They just click download, and suddenly it's on their computer, or in this case, on their phone if they're using an app. So WeTransfer. Cool. Yeah. So there we go. That's my app of the week.
I like it. I dig it. So WeTransfer, well, Tori, both W's. And now we're winners. I would like to thank you all for listening. Of course, thank you so much for joining us again. Hey, Lori, if people are looking for you online, where can they find you?
They can find me at Appaholic on Twitter. That's APPAHOLIK. I like to say it as fast as I possibly can. You'll have to slow it down. You'll have to slow this podcast down if you want to hear what I just said.
What did she say?
And then at Lori Gill at most of the other social things, and iMore, writing all about Apple. And where can we find you on the internet?
Well, if you're looking for me online, you can find me over on Twitter at Micah Sargent. But if you're looking for the other things I'm doing, you're just going to type in www.chihuahua, that's CHIHUAHUA.coffee. And that's going to give you links to all the things I do. That's Instagram and Facebook and, oh dear, Facebook and the different podcasts and things like that. Now, if you were looking for Serenity Caldwell, you could find her at SETTERN, Saturn. On almost everything. You're looking for Renee Ritchie, you can find him at Renee Ritchie. And if you're looking for our dear friend Georgia Dow, you can find her on Twitter at Georgia_Dow. Thank you so much to Jim Metzendorf for editing this show, as well as most of the podcasts that exist on the internet, it seems. He's quite the prolific editor. We will be back next week with so much more. I hope that everybody has a fantastic week. And thanks again for tuning in. Good.
Peace out, yo.
Peace out. Peace and